AITAH for telling my adult stepson to stop walking from his room to the bathroom naked. It's weird how a single, stupid moment can completely destroy the fragile peace of a household. I never thought I'd be that person. The one who ends up arguing with their husband's 22-year-old son about basic decency and the importance of wearing pants. And yet here I am, the villain in a story that started with a towel. Or, more specifically, the absence of one. My stepson, Evan, moved in with us 3 months ago after finishing college. My husband, Mark, was thrilled, had always felt guilty about missing so much of Evan's childhood after his divorce. So having him under our roof felt like some kind of second chance. At first, it was fine. Evan was polite, quiet, a little detached, but I figured that was just his way of adjusting. Then the morning walks started. Every day, sometime around 8 a.m., Evan would leave his room, which is right next to mine and Mark's, and head to the bathroom, completely naked. No towel, no boxers, just out there, full parade. The first time, I froze. Maybe he thought no one was awake, I told myself. Maybe it was an accident. But then it happened again, and again. Once, I came out of the kitchen with a cup of coffee and caught him mid-stride, and the look he gave me wasn't embarrassment. It was more like indifference, like I was the one who was out of place in my own house. I told Mark about it that evening. He laughed, actually laughed. "Come on, honey," he said. "Has just being comfortable. It's not like has doing it on purpose." "Comfortable?" I snapped. "Has walking around naked, Mark. In the middle of the house. I don't even walk around naked." Mark just shrugged. "Has a guy. Guys don't care about stuff like that." I bit my tongue, but inside, something twisted, because suddenly, it didn't feel like a misunderstanding anymore. It felt like a test, like Evan was trying to see how far he could push before I said something. The next morning, I decided to beat him to it. I woke up early, made coffee, and waited. Right on schedule. His door open, and there he was. Again, bare, expressionless, heading straight for the bathroom like this was the most natural thing in the world. I didn't yell. I just said, as calmly as I could, "Evan, I'm going to need you to put some clothes on before you leave your room. This isn't a frat house." He froze mid-step, turned slowly, and gave me a look I'll never forget. A mix of amusement and irritation. "It's just skin," he said. "Yeah," I reply, "and it's skin I didn't consent to seeing before my morning coffee." His jaw clenched. He didn't say another word, just turned around and slammed the bathroom door. That evening, Mark came home in a mood. Apparently, Evan had told him I humiliated him. According to Mark, I overreacted. "You could have handled it privately," he said. "How much more private can it get? It was just us." I shot back. He sighed, rubbing his temples like I was the one making life difficult. That's when I realized something. Mark wasn't defending Evan out of fairness. He was defending him out of guilt. Had missed years of fatherhood, and now any criticism toward Evan felt like a personal attack on his parenting. I told him that. He didn't take it well. The tension only got worse. Evan stopped acknowledging me, had walked past me without a word, sometimes smirking like he knew something I didn't. Mark started eating dinner later and later, waiting for Evan to get home so they could eat together. Without me. One night, I overheard them talking in the living room. Evan said, "She's overstepping. You're letting her control everything." And Mark didn't correct him. He just stayed silent. That silence said everything. 2 weeks later, I walked into the kitchen and found a towel. One of mine, draped casually across the counter, wet, used. Evan's door was still closed, and I could hear the faint sound of music from inside. It felt deliberate, provocative. I picked up the towel, threw it in the laundry, and sat down with Mark that evening. "I'm done walking on eggshells in my own house," I said. "Either he learns boundaries, or he finds another place to live." Mark's face hardened. "You're asking me to kick my son out?" "No," I said quietly. "I'm asking you to make him act like a decent human being." He didn't answer. Not that night. Not the next morning. But when I came home from work 3 days later, Evan's car was gone. His room was empty. Mark just said he went to stay with his mom for a while. I thought I'd feel relieved. Instead, I just felt exhausted. It's been a month since then, and things are civil. Mark's distant. We talk, but there's a heaviness between us that wasn't there before. Sometimes I wonder if I should have just ignored it. Pretended I didn't see. Let him walk around naked until he got bored of trying to get a reaction. But then I think, If someone doesn't draw a line, people like Evan just keep crossing it. So maybe I lost something. Maybe Mark will always think I was too harsh. But at least now, when I walk from my bedroom to the kitchen in the morning, the only thing naked in this house is the truth. Continuation. When he came back, it's been 6 months since Evan left. 6 quiet, heavy, almost peaceful months. Mark and I had settled into a rhythm again. Dinner at the table, TV in the evenings, soft conversation that tiptoed around anything real. But silence, I've learned, doesn't always mean peace. Sometimes it's just the pause before the next explosion. And mine came in the form of a text. Hey, just so you know, Evan's coming for the weekend. That was it. No question, no discussion. Just a statement of fact, a warning disguised as information. I stared at my phone for a full minute, my coffee going cold. 6 months. 6 months since that argument. Since Mark's son stormed out of the house and left us to pick up the pieces of a fractured piece. And now he was coming back. The day he arrived, I felt it before I heard it. The sharp slam of a car door. The thud of boots on the porch. Mark rushed to open the door, his face lighting up with the kind of smile I hadn't seen in months. Evan stepped in, taller somehow, colder definitely. The kind of confidence that doesn't come from healing but from resentment. Hey, he said flatly, eyes flicking to me for half a second before moving past. Hi, Evan, I replied, polite, distant, calm. He didn't answer. He just walked straight to the guest room, not his old room, and shut the door. That first night, Mark was practically glowing. They laughed over dinner, catching up like no time had passed at all. I barely spoke. Every time I tried, Evan would cut me off mid-sentence, steering the conversation back to himself. At one point, he looked right at me and said, "You redecorated. Guess you made yourself comfortable after I left." It was a harmless sentence, but the tone wasn't. It was a test, and I knew better than to take the bait. Mark noticed nothing, or maybe he noticed everything and just pretended not to. That night, I couldn't sleep. I got up around midnight, went to the kitchen for a glass of water, and froze. Evan was there, leaning against the counter, shirtless, a faint smirk on his face. He wasn't naked this time, but the message was the same. "Can't sleep?" he asked. "No," I said. "Weird. I sleep great here. Must be all the comfort in this house." He said the word comfort like it was something rotten. I walked past him, pretending not to notice the smugness dripping from every syllable. He wanted me to react. He wanted to win. I didn't give him the satisfaction. The next morning, Mark was cheerful, making pancakes like we were some perfect little sitcom family. Evan joined us, all smiles and casual jokes like the tension from the night before never happened. Halfway through breakfast, he turned to Mark and said, "Hey Dad, remember when I was a kid and you told me not to walk around naked? Guess not everyone liked that rule." I looked up slowly. Mark froze. It was a taunt, a trap, a perfect little reminder that he was still in control of the narrative. Mark's face went pale. He tried to laugh it off, but it came out awkward, forced. "Let's not start that again," he said quickly. "Yeah," I said quietly. "Let's not." The table went silent. Later that day, I found Mark sitting on the porch, his face buried in his hands. "He's angry," he said softly. "At me, at you, at everything." I didn't say anything, because I already knew. "I think I messed him up," he whispered. "I was gone too long, tried to fix it too late." I sat beside him, unsure what to say. Because what do you tell a man who's realizing that the child he raised, or didn't raise, has turned into a stranger? That evening, I was in the living room when Evan came in again. This time, he looked different. No smirk, no attitude, just tired. He sat down across from me, staring at the floor. "You know, I don't hate you," he said suddenly. It was so unexpected that I almost laughed. "You have a funny way of showing it," I said. He looked up, and for the first time, I saw something human in his eyes. "You embarrassed me," he said quietly. "That day, you talked to me like I was a kid, in front of Dad. You acted like one," I said gently. He frowned, then looked away. "I didn't mean to make you uncomfortable. I don't know. I felt like I didn't belong here, like you were trying to replace me." And there it was, the real issue. Naked at last. "Evan," I said softly, "I never tried to replace anyone. I just wanted this house to feel like a home, for both of us." He didn't answer, just nodded slowly, like he didn't fully believe me but wanted to. Then he stood up and said, Guess I should start wearing clothes, then. And for the first time in months, I laughed. That night, Mark hugged me tighter than he had in a long time. You handled that better than I did, he said quietly. I didn't tell him that I'd spent the last 6 months replaying that fight in my head, wondering if I was the villain in all of it. Because maybe I wasn't. Maybe I just did what needed to be done when no one else would. Evan stayed the whole weekend. He was distant but polite. He helped with the dishes, even joked a little by Sunday morning. Before he left, he stood by the door for a moment, keys in hand. You're not that bad, he said. Neither are you, I replied. He smiled, faintly, and then he was gone again. This time, not angry, just growing up, finally. Mark turned to me after the door closed. Thank you, he said. For what? For doing what I couldn't. And that's when it hit me. This wasn't really about nudity or boundaries or even embarrassment. It was about respect, about learning where the lines are drawn, and how to stay human while drawing them. Evan still visits sometimes. He keeps his distance, both emotionally and literally. But now, when he walks from his room to the bathroom, he wears a towel. And I guess, in a strange, quiet way, that's progress. Continuation. The lessons behind the nudity months passed after Evan's weekend visit. The house returned to its usual rhythm, quiet, orderly, almost peaceful. But peace doesn't mean the absence of tension. It just means the tension is buried beneath a thin layer of civility. Mark seemed relieved. He didn't bring up the incident again, but I could sense a subtle shift. Whenever Evan visited now, there was caution in Mark's voice, restraint in his laughter. He seemed almost afraid to confront the tension that had always lingered in the background. And me? I felt exhausted, because I realized something profound. This wasn't about towels, nudity, or embarrassment. It was about power. Evan's behavior wasn't random. It was testing boundaries. Testing me. Testing Mark. Testing the invisible lines of authority in this blended household. I hadn't realized it at first. I thought it was disrespect. I thought it was immaturity. I thought it was just Evan being a free-spirited young man who didn't care about social norms. But it was deeper than that. He had lived most of his adult life feeling invisible. His father had been absent emotionally, physically, spiritually. Mark had tried to fix it now, belatedly, but the damage was already done. So Evan walked around naked not just to shock or irritate me. He walked around naked to assert his presence, to make sure someone noticed him, to reclaim a space he had always felt excluded from. And in that, I finally understood the weight of the confrontation. When I told him to put on clothes, I wasn't just enforcing household rules. I was telling him bluntly, I see you, but I will not be your audience for this behavior. You will respect me and this space. That understanding didn't make it easier, because respect cuts both ways. Evan, in his own way, had been asking for a home, a place where he could belong. But I had denied him that, by enforcing a rule he saw as trivial or even cruel. Mark tried to mediate, but mediation only highlighted the fractures. Every family has power dynamics, but blended families amplify them. It's never just about the behavior. It's about who controls the narrative. And I had claimed that control. I started noticing small things over the next few months. Evan started leaving his room quietly. No loud footsteps. No lingering stares. He made efforts to clean up after himself, even doing dishes without being asked. Had occasionally joked about the past, sometimes at my expense, but with a spark of acknowledgement. Almost like a truce. It was progress. Tentative. Fragile. But it was progress. And yet, the tension lingered like a shadow. Mark began to speak to me less about Evan. He left the parenting entirely to me when it came to boundaries. It was as if he had washed his hands of the responsibility he had ignored for years, leaving me to navigate the consequences. I realized that in enforcing boundaries, I had become both the protector and the disciplinarian. It was exhausting. It was lonely. And it forced me to examine myself. Because boundaries are not just rules. They are statements of self-respect. They are declarations of dignity. And enforcing them, even on someone you love, carries consequences. Evan still visits. Has polite, careful, measured. We laugh sometimes, usually at stupid, mundane things. Sometimes he leaves a dish in the sink and smirks like a ghost of the old days. But now, when he walks to the bathroom, he wears a towel. It's a small thing, a trivial thing, but it symbolizes something much much larger. It symbolizes that respect can be enforced without destroying a relationship, though it may bend it, stretch it, and temporarily strain it. It symbolizes that power and authority are not just given, they must be maintained. And it symbolizes that love in a blended family is always complex. It's messy, it's exhausting, it's sometimes humiliating, but it's worth the fight. Late at night, I sit in the dark and replay the confrontation in my head. I remember the smirk, the stubbornness, the silent challenge in Evan's eyes. I remember Mark's conflicted expression caught between fatherhood and guilt. I remember myself standing firm, feeling both righteous and terrified. I realize now that moment defined more than just a rule about nudity. It defined how our household operates. It defined how respect is earned and maintained. It defined who we are when no one is watching, and when everyone is. I will never forget that first confrontation, and I will never forget the lessons it carried, that respect is not optional, that boundaries protect not just you, but everyone around you, that love in families, especially blended families, requires courage, honesty, and sometimes discomfort. Evan is no longer the same boy who walked around naked, indifferent to the world. He is still stubborn, still mischievous, but now measured. He has learned slowly that boundaries are not attacks, and I have learned slowly that enforcing them is not cruelty. At night, sometimes I hear the faint echo of a footstep in the hallway. Not reckless, not provocative, just human. And I realize the peace I fought for is fragile, but it is finally ours.